This is the new Samsung Galaxy Tab S4. When it comes to drawing on tablets, Apple gets most of the attention, but over the last few years, Samsung and Wacom have been quietly designing really amazing pen technology, and today we're going to be taking a look. If you're new here, my name is Brad, and I review technology from the standpoint of an illustrator. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about Bixby or the new facial recognition features, even though that works really well. I'm going to be talking about what it's like to draw on this thing. You pull it out of the packaging for the first time and boot it up, and how does the screen look? It is absolutely stunning. It is just beautiful. It's a 16 by 10 orientation, so it's a little bit wider than an iPad. The screen is 10.5 inches corner to corner, and it has a 2560 pixel by 1600 pixel resolution. It's a good size for drawing. It's big enough to fit most of the tools from your app on the screen while leaving you lots of room to draw. The tablet itself is pretty light, feels solid, really well built, but the sound, I know I said I was only going to talk about art stuff, but holy cow, you guys, the sound blew my mind. I expected it to be at least a little bit tinny. That's what I expect from tablets, but no, it is really, really good. There's speakers on the top and there are speakers on the bottom of the device, so you get an even balance of sound, even more so than you do on the iPad Pro. I was not expecting that at all. Not much else to say here from a hardware standpoint other than it's really fantastic. The Tab 4 comes with its own pen, doesn't cost extra, you don't have to sync it. To borrow a phrase from Apple, it just works. The Tab 4 even has software built into the OS with a lot of fun things you can do with the pen. Hovering over the display brings up a little pencil icon. You can tap on it to bring up Samsung's pen-enabled tools. These are fun if you want to jot down a quick note or sketch on a screenshot. The pen itself is really light. That's really good for traveling. It's not going to add any unnecessary weight to your bag. For me personally, it's not the most comfortable pen to hold for long stretches of time. It's way better to hold than the tiny S Pens that come with a note. Absolutely, but because of the lightness, I found myself gripping it tighter than I should. I know, it's just me, I'm a weirdo. I'm used to Wacom styluses that are designed for long-term grip and holding. This is designed to be as lightweight and as portable as possible. This is a design choice that Samsung made. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad design choice, it's just there are trade-offs in everything you do when you're designing a product of any kind, and the trade-off they made here is they made the stylus lighter and thus less comfortable if you're going to hold it for hours on end. If you do want to make this your primary drawing device, there are definitely some alternatives out there if you don't like the pen that much. For example, Staedtler makes a stylus that looks and feels the same as one of their old school technical pencils. Speaking of Wacom, the pen is using Wacom tech. So this stylus does a lot of the little things you would expect a Wacom stylus to do, like pressure sensitivity and being really accurate. The pen itself has 4,000 levels of pressure sensitivity, more than enough to do anything that you're going to want to do with it. Picking up the pen and actually drawing on the tablet feels somewhere between good and okay. The stylus has a plastic tip. When you draw on a glass screen, it's a little bit slippery and a little bit hard to control. I can feel a little bit of a resistance, at least a little rubbery resistance, I'd describe it. It's definitely not textured, and I will say it feels a little bit better than using the Apple Pencil on an iPad screen. Now, if you've been here for a while, you know I like to put matte screen protectors on a lot of my devices. That gives me more resistance to draw with, and it gives me a lot more control. Since this does feel a little bit slippery, what ends up happening is I do get some line jitter when I'm drawing slow. Now, sometimes with some tablets, the line jitter comes from the tablet itself. Sometimes it comes from my hand. It's hard to show what's happening on film. It's just an instinctive thing. I've used so many of these tablets. I know when it's my hand and I know when it's the device adding the jitter. And in this case, it's my hand. If I was going to be using this full time, I would definitely invest in a matte screen protector. And by invest, I mean spend like $6. The pen tip is very small. This didn't really affect my drawing in any way, but I do wonder if I was to use a matte screen protector on this, if that would feel the same as it does with the Apple Pencil. The Apple Pencil has a thicker tip, so it covers more of a surface area when it's touching the tablet. So it picks up more of that texture and it gives you more control. I would imagine this would be fine. And even if you're worried about your nibs wearing out, there are replacement nibs that come with the device. The light gray ones are a little bit harder. If you like that feel, I'm sticking with the dark gray ones for now. I like those. Now, one thing that I did notice is that when my pen hits the screen, where the cursor actually appears is offset by like 2 or 3 pixels. Not a ton, but it appears slightly below where the pen tip actually hits the screen. I also noticed compared to the iPad Pro that there is some lag to the strokes, and this is something that appeared across pretty much every drawing app that I tested. I should also point out this isn't something that got in the way of my drawing, but it's something that I noticed. You probably noticed that the pen also has a button on it. Now, this button by default doesn't really work with any of the drawing apps. Some drawing apps take advantage of it and you can program it to do something, but by default, it's going to bring up Samsung's extra sketching, drawing, note tools. I also like that the button is placed back a little bit on the pen. I never accidentally hit it with my thumb, which is a problem I have with many styluses when I'm drawing, especially a stylus like this, which I'm clutching harder than I should. Now, as far as drawing apps go, I've been using several on Android just to test it out. The first is iBez Paint X. This one is a fan favorite. I've never really gotten into it myself, but there is a hardcore following online that always let me know about it in the comment section. I can see why. It feels solid. It feels good to draw on, actually. If you don't want to pay for it and you want to unlock more brushes, every time you want to unlock one, you just watch an ad. Sketchbook Pro, it's free now. People love that. In fact, a lot of people like Sketchbook Pro in general. I can't quite put my finger on it, but there is something about Sketchbook Pro that I've never connected with. I just don't care for it, and that was no different here. Someday I'll have to do a video on it and try to, collect my thoughts on that one. Infinite Painter, it's probably the closest to Procreate you're gonna get on Android. It's free to use, at least with the basic tools. There are some in-app purchases if you want to get the really cool stuff. And then there's Medibang. I like drawing in Medibang. It feels good. It reminds me of Clip Studio on the desktop overall, but my one takeaway from it is that the interface takes up a lot of the drawing space I want, and on a tablet, I like the more minimal interfaces for drawing. Now, software is the one area where I feel the iPad has this tablet beat. Though the apps I mentioned earlier aren't bad, the stuff on iOS really stands out as great. There's nothing on Android like Clip Studio. There's nothing on Android like Affinity Designer or Affinity Photo. There are apps that try to be like AstroPad, but they really just don't cut it. Now, one of my criticisms when I got the iPad Pro was that it didn't feel pro, but over the last 3 years, it has become more and more Pro. And this has way more to do with the companies making apps for the device than anything that Apple has done. Now, for whatever reason, we haven't seen that come to Android yet. The hardware is there. It can totally happen here. It's just not the software. It's not there yet. When I reviewed my very first Android tablet about 2 years ago, the apps felt like a step down from the stuff that you get on iOS. And unfortunately, here we are 2 years later, and I feel like it's more like an elevator ride down from the stuff I'm using on iOS. I'm really using the same exact apps with maybe incrementally better features, whereas the stuff on iOS has taken a huge leap forward. Now, overall, there's absolutely nothing holding you back from creating great art on an Android tablet. Nothing at all. From a hardware standpoint, this device easily stands toe-to-toe with the iPad Pro. If you're invested in the Android ecosystem and hate Apple with the passion of 1,000 burning suns, yeah, I know you're out there, then this is a really nice tablet. Thank you guys for watching the review. If you want a full list of Android tablets that you can draw on, I have compiled that on my website, and you can check it out in the description down below. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I will see you in a couple of days.